Hello, everyone. How are you today? I think everyone's phones we should be on. So, your phone.
Someone's calling from Spain.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay. So, welcome to our webinar, our Community of Practice. I'm going to quickly just do a brief overview to get us going, and then we have a fun and interactive agenda plan for you guys. So just to start, just to remind everyone that our work together is about creating partnerships for schools and communities and government agencies to work together to prepare students for civic life and college and career readiness. And this is work has been made possible through the Workforce Investment Board of the state, and we are actually in our second round of funding, which is allowing us to create a community of practice as well as supporting you guys in scaling up the awesome work you're doing in your communities around governments engaging youth. And the community of practice is, next slide. The community of practice is really to bring a network of passionate folks like you guys together so that we can continue to build robust pipelines to the public service from high school, hopefully through college, into our public service sector, with the result of getting more young people civically engaged in their community and exposed to work-based learning opportunities so that they get interested in the public sector. And today our goals are to give you guys a chance to share your successes and challenges in the work you're doing, to dive deep into a conversation around internships and to review a guidebook that Terry Carpenter has graciously created and sharing with us, to give you guys a chance to problem solve together around challenges you're facing. And then we're going to kind of go back to the why conversation we had at our last COP meeting and talk a little bit, have you reflect a little bit and learn about how to tell your story. And our end goal really is to just continue to develop relationships between you guys and us, and so that we can move the work forward around the government's engaging youth effort. Next slide. So Hong is going to tell you a little bit about logistics.
Hi, everyone. We're going to mostly have everyone not muted throughout the entire webinar because we want to allow for conversation, but we are going to ask everyone to put their phones on mute while you aren't speaking. At some point, we'll ask you to type in questions or comments, so you'll use the question box. And go ahead and hit send to all so everyone can see your questions. When we are speaking, we have some designated speaking orders just to allow not everyone talking at once. And then lastly, go ahead and take some time. If you are using the audio on your computer, we're going to ask people to actually dial in from their cell phones or their desk computers. That just allows for better sound quality.
Yes, thank you. We tried to unmute the phones, and we did receive a lot of audio static and audio feedback. So it really would help if everyone was on a hard line or cell line as opposed to their computer. And then, of course, please be sure to turn your computer volume off so you don't have a circular audio feedback.
Okay. I guess any questions? Hearing none, we're going to dive into a little icebreaker to kind of bring us present together on the topic of the day, which is primarily around internships. So the icebreaker, and you'll see on the screen, is the order we're going to take people. And the icebreaker question is, tell us about your first job in 30 seconds. And just to model, I will start with my first job. My first job was being a babysitter with my best friend, and from that, she moved to a organization. She got a job in an organization called Majestic, which is like Best Buy, and she took me with her, and so I did some retail work at the age of 16, and my mentor was my 16-year-old friend. So how about if we have Ian from Summer Steps share his first job?
Hey there, and I'm with.
Ian?
So, Ian, if you want to try to turn the volume off on your computer and then maybe try to dial in from a landline.
And maybe in the meantime, we'll skip to the next person and come back to you, Ian.
Why don't we go with Marianne?
Yeah. So, Marianne, would you share your first job with us?
Good morning, everybody. My first job was working at a farm stand in Columbus, Ohio, with a local farmer who grew all the crops right there, and we just sold it at the local stand. It's pretty cool.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
I would have never guessed that.
Okay.
Thank you, Marianne. And now I think we've got Terry.
Terry, your first job.
And Terry, you might be, are you on mute maybe?
Terry's there. Okay. We will skip to Elka.
Okay. Next one would be Elk Grove. So Carrie Byerland. All right. We were having some.
Oh. Carrie or Terry? Can't hear you. I think someone's talking.
I'm not sure who's trying to speak. Feel free to, if you're trying to speak and we're not hearing you, can you connect with us in the chat box? We'll try to help sort things out that way. Perhaps we can check in with, is Carlos on the line from Elk Grove? Yeah. Carlos, are you there? Yes. Yes,
Okay.
hi.
Yeah. So my first job was working at a yogurt shop that my friend's parents owned, and we were all high school kids that were working there, making $4.25 an hour.
Hi. Yeah. Thank you for sharing.
Video.
Anybody else from Elk Grove on the line? I don't think so. And Salinas, we have Anna on the line. Good morning, Anna.
Good morning. Also with me is Kristen. My first job. My formal first job was actually at Subway, so I was making sandwiches.
And this is Kristen, and my first job was a camp counselor for YMCA for their summer day camp, which really, I think, set the stage for my career and desire to work with youth and families, make a difference in my community.
Nice. Thank you. Well, should we see if Ian's back?
Let's see. Is Carrie back on the line too?
She's having some.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, I see some questions. Okay. Is Kristen O'Cudahy on the line?
Yes, I'm here.
Good morning. Would you like to share your first job?
Sure. And I'm still connected through computer audio because I'm not sure how to do it with my phone.
Okay.
Seems to work.
It seems to be working fine. Great.
Don't do a thing.
Oh,
It's
okay.
working.
Okay. So my first job, I was 15 and I worked in a veterinary clinic. And I had the unenviable task of, because I wasn't qualified to do much except clean cages and hold animals. But I did have to be with dogs and cats as they were being euthanized to kind of make sure that nothing was going wrong and that they didn't fall off the table, and just I think so they wouldn't be alone. And what I discovered, because the time I thought I really wanted to be a veterinarian because, I was a 15-year-old girl and we all want to be veterinarians. But what I discovered was that I did not want to be a veterinarian, not because of the sadness, but because things didn't change enough. It was kind of like the same thing every day. So it was good to find that out early and not try to end up on that path and, go through vet school.
Nice.
It's important to figure out what you don't want as much as what you do. Well, I think we've got almost everybody on the line. Did we?
Ian, we haven't heard.
Oh, Ian, are you back yet? I'll mute everybody. Okay, so I just turned to mute on everybody so we didn't have to hear the beep. I'm looking through our list of attendees, and I'm noticing we haven't heard yet from Terry Carpenter. Terry, are you on the line? I think you might need to register in with your audio pin, Terry. I just sent it to you. And how about our very own Frank Pesey?
Hey, my first job was teaching puppetry to kindergartners in a summer program at the school where my mom worked. So I kind of knew someone that got me in, but I desperately wanted to buy I never forget this, desperately wanted to buy a keyboard that was $400, and somehow the job paid $400. So
it wasn't $4.25 an hour.
No, I got probably $2 an hour.
Yeah.
But it was fun because I was, a foot taller than everyone else because I think I was 11 or 12 at the time. So, that was my first foray into hero worship, which was kind of fun. Because the kids are like, "Wow, you're so tall." So it was fun.
Charlie?
Oh, can I introduce real quick? Charlie Gilmore is online. You might remember him from our last COP with Rancho Cordova. And Charlie is now ours. He is a curriculum specialist at the County Office of Ed and going to be providing some help and support to the project. So I got him. Sorry, everybody. But yes, so Charlie, go ahead.
My first job was in high school, and I was a busboy at Fresh Choice, was the salad bar, soup, and buffet place. Yeah.
And how'd you get it?
I think it was down the street from my house, and I think I went through that whole shopping center and got applications to every place and turned them in, and a guy that was that was in the journalism class at my high school was already employed there, and so I had a little in that turned out to help.
Yeah. It helps when you know someone, that's for sure. We have
Hi everyone, this is Hong. My first job was actually at Jamba Juice making smoothies. When I turned 15, my older sister drove me to the local mall, and I went to all the venues and asked for applications. And the manager at Jamba Juice, he said, "Do you want to do an interview right now?" So I did a very impromptu interview and got the job there.
This is Randy Kay. My first job my formal first job was in high school, and my dad owned a franchise restaurant, and I worked and did customer service, and my favorite part was working the drive-through. Wow. Wearing the headset.
So it sounds like we all had some kind of work experience as a team. And one of our objectives, obviously, through this initiative is to continue to expose young people to work experiences, hopefully in the public sector. With that, I'd like to welcome everyone again. We're excited you're on the phone, and I'm going to turn it over to Frank to get us going on our lightning round.
All right, lightning round, everybody. Now we need that feedback so we can have some sound. So I'll give you 30 seconds to look at the speaking order. Ventura starting, then moving all the way down to Summer Steps. Yay, you guys are last. No, so I know that's what you're thinking. But I want you to think about and share in 1 minute your biggest implementation success so far that you've had. So it could be from the last time that we met as a community of practice, or it could be from the beginning of the program that you've had. But I want you to think about what is your biggest implementation success. And it could be a small success, but an amazing success. So it doesn't have to be something huge. But what is your most impactful implementation success? 1 minute. So I'll give you 30 seconds right now to think through that, and then we'll move on to, you can see the speaking order there. So, I need the Jeopardy thing. Okay, we won't say that. That sounds like 30 seconds to me. Okay, so Ventura County Civic Alliance. Marianne, your biggest success so far?
Oh, wait, hold on.
Oh, wait, sorry. We stole 4 seconds from you. We'll start it over.
I'm going to unmute everybody, okay? If the audio goes off again, I will go ahead and mute the entire line and just do individuals.
Okay. So Marianne gets an official 4 more seconds put back on. I feel like please put 4 seconds back on the clock.
I will. Okay. Everyone should be completely open to chatting.
So Marianne.
All right, Marianne. So I'll count to 4 and then we'll start your timer. Okay, go ahead, Marianne.
They increased the number of students from 20 to 25 at the city of Oxnard, and they're getting fully paid by the city this year. The city of Camarillo is coming on board as a new site with 8 students getting paid $15.60 an hour as a direct hire. And the county of Ventura is increasing their numbers from 8 to 20 this year, all for the summer.
Wow.
Name that tune.
Nice.
Congratulations. That's amazing.
Thank you.
We have 34 seconds to go. What else do you want to say?
Hey, life is good. I mean, we're just excited to have all the students getting paid this year, full amount rather than a stipend. So we just found a way to get the city of Oxnard to pay their students, the minimum wage, and so they came up with the money. So I'm very excited about that.
Very cool.
And the city is using which fund?
The city is using a tax measure that was undesignated funds, and they're pulling it out for the internship.
Cool.
Right.
Perfect. And even time for a question. Wow. All right.
Yeah.
We're thinking, gee, can they do it in a minute? And it's like, wow. Awesome.
Good modeling.
All right, so Terry, you're up next with the setup.
All right. Let's see. I think it might be, why don't we go ahead and go to Elk Grove?
All right, we'll move to Elk Grove. Elk Grove!
I think Carrie's trying to dial in right now. So forgive me, let's go to health professionals.
All right, well then health professionals. Wow, these are, okay, Kristen, health professionals.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, and you get all of their time, so I'm joking, you still have 1 minute.
Oh my God, okay. So we just finished up the Y Plan project for this year a couple of weeks ago, and this is the first year that I was not running it as the lead teacher in my classroom, so I was facilitating, but the contacts that we made with the city this year, it looks like we're going to have much stronger relationships going forward because they're very excited about, if we had known that it was like this, we could have gotten these people on board. And so we're looking to build a client pool and have them kind of have a list of what their questions or their project questions would be so that when we go forward with it, our students can self-select a little bit better. And then they really want to use the Y Plan project as a pipeline for students to go into internships and hopefully later employment.
Cool, and it's perfect that you had that. I wish we would have known, a moment that they said, because later today we'll talk about the messaging and how you can get your message out to your partners and they can really understand and see what it's all about. So that's a perfect kind of foreshadowing. I don't know, I teach history. So that's a perfect precursor to what we'll do later today. So very cool.
Good.
All right. So is Terry on or Carlos or Elk Grove? Did he get back in or move down?
Let's see. Pro Youth is on the line. I think Stacy and Demetrius are on the line together. I'm trying to make sure you're unmuted. It says you might be self-muted, Stacy, so we would love to hear from you if you can unmute your line.
Stacy would never silence herself. Are you there?
Okay. Let's see.
This is Carlos, and I'm ready if you guys are.
Can you hear us this way?
Go for it. Carlos, go for it.
I'm hanging up on the phone. Can you hear us?
We can, but now it's Carlos' turn. Sorry, Stacy. Hold on.
Hello? Can you hear us?
Hello? Yes. Who is that?
Now? Yes, you can hear us?
Yes.
Oh, my goodness. Well, now I can't be really rude.
Good. All
Sorry.
right, Stacey, you got 1 minute.
All right, Casey,
Stacey,
go.
go. For you.
Wait,
Hi,
Demetrius is going to do it.
Hi, this is
All right, Demetrius, 1 minute. Now you have 40.
That's all right. So our biggest success, implementation success so far has been we had 28 sign up, 28 students or fellows as we call them. We now have 26 that have come to the first several meetings, which is a great number for us. We have already discussed with Rancho Cordova that we're going to be extending our 4-week program in the summer to 5 weeks, which will allow us to include a week-long professional boot camp and also give the students an opportunity to increase their internship from 32 hours in 4 weeks to 48 hours over the 5 weeks. And there's also a discussion with Stacey to increase the stipend as well.
And it is going to be 400.
Yes, is that 15?
Yeah, so now we're going to do 15 interns versus 11, and they increase the stipend to $400 from $300.
Nice.
Thank you
Is that
for
a minute?
sharing.
You did it. Perfect.
Done.
Done.
All right.
Okay. Carlos, are you back on?
Yeah, so since our last community practice meeting, we have agreed on our dates and times and hours. In the past 3 years, we've had the job shadow really be kind of the culminating experience, but we've moved to the full internship. We've brought additional partners on board who are going to be taking interns this summer. We've created an online application, and we've advertised that online. And also there was recently a mailer that went out to homes in the city, from the city, that is helping to direct people to our website, to our application. And we've got that open through April 13th. So we're hoping for a big response and doing pretty well already.
That's great.
Thank you.
Very cool.
Exciting.
All right, let me see. Where are we? Is Terry back on the line or not?
Terry, we're gonna try to unmute you and see if you can come on. Oh, Terry, hopefully we can hear you now.
Can you hear me?
Yay!
All right, folks, that's a great webinar. We're done.
Oh my gosh. Thank you.
Just kidding.
Biggest success so far is we got Terry on the phone.
All right, I'll
All right. Terry, go for it.
Okay, we're talking about, can you refresh what I'm, are we?
Your biggest success so far, your implementation success for your program.
Well, number one, getting on this webinar for sound. Number two is basically having the opportunity to develop a new and improved internship guide and toolkit, which we'll be discussing today, and launching a foster youth pilot that was focusing on public sector work experience, I think are the 3 successes for me today.
Very cool.
Excellent.
Nice. I like that. The city of Salinas.
Okay, so I think really implementing the program itself has been a huge success for us. In 3 weeks, we were able to recruit 30 plus students and ended up with a graduating class of 28, so that was really good for us. Now we're working on this summer's timeline, so we expanded. So our program was only 3 weeks, and now we're going to go for a 4th week, which is going to give us the opportunity to cover a little more and do a little bit of more job shadowing and so on. Kristen, I don't know if there's anything you'd like to add.
I think the only other thing, and I'll say it very quickly, is our city is really looking at how we can package all of our youth development and leadership programs under one umbrella. And so we'll be working with our community safety division as well, who does the Youth Leadership Academy, and seeing how we can better, I guess, package and share our story. And one of the things that we've done is come up with a kind of tagline, which is "See Our Youth" or SOY. And we feel it's a very strong word for youth to recognize and to you know, who they are, and use that as a marketing tool. So that's kind of where we're going to in the future.
Very nice.
Joy.
Yeah.
Great.
Cool.
Thank you.
All right. Summer Steps internship program. Ian. Maybe.
Looks like Ian needs to enter an audio pin, so I'm going to make sure you've got that.
14 pounds.
I know it's different for
Oh,
everybody.
it's different for everyone?
Yeah. I think we went through everybody else, right?
We did.
But we didn't get to hear from Terry about Terry's first job, right?
Right.
Terry, do you want?
Yeah, my first job was I delivered newspapers.
Whoa. You got up at 4 a.m.
Yeah. And my mom, for the first week, she drove me around in our station wagon, and I sat back on the tailgate and threw the papers. And then after the first week, she said, "This was too early. You're on your own." So it was an interesting experience.
Yeah, that's tough.
All right. Ian, we'd love to hear from you on all accounts.
All right.
Hey, can you hear West Sacramento?
Yeah.
Yay!
Awesome. So I'm joined by Sarah Helway. She's a human resource technician in our HR division of administrative services. And we're going to split our time and just go through kind of what we see as some major successes for the STEPS and Next Steps program. So I'm going to kick off by saying, just as consistent with the past 2 years of STEPS, we've actually hired 2 of our former Summer STEPS interns as full-time employees.
Yay! Awesome.
Okay. And beyond that, we've created 4 digital badges for the Next Steps program, which is a big win for us. One was in human resources, one was in the city clerk's office, one was in community relations, and then another was for economic development and housing. And so with that, I'm going to pass it back to Sarah.
Hi, everyone. I'm new here, so this whole program's a little new, but I sit next to a current Next Steps intern, and we kind of talked about the program. It's been her 3rd year, and she said that one of her favorite things is working on projects that actually are important. She works on reports that people in her department go and present on. So I think that's kind of important, besides what Ian said about hiring the intern to a full-time capacity.
All right.
Thank you.
All done in 1 minute. You guys are awesome.
We didn't get to hear about their first job.
Oh, your first jobs too. Perfect.
Okay. My first job was when I was 14 years old with the city of the city of Davis, as a swim instructor aide, teaching kiddos, mostly 3 to 8-year-olds, how to swim for their first time.
Very nice. Very cool. Yeah.
And Sarah?
And for me, when I was 16, my first job was working as a kiosk worker for the Caron Park Lake, up in Caron Park in the summer. Imagine 110 degrees, full sun, no shade, no AC. It was pretty, it was something else for the summers. So.
And you didn't make that your career? Cool. All right. Well, great successes. I mean, we've got good growth and new partnerships and all things in between. That's super cool that we got going on there. And I think as we look at, through the rest of the agenda here, we'll be sharing also what some challenges you have, because obviously we've had great successes, but there are still challenges that everyone's working with. And that's why we're all here in a community of practice, because if it wasn't, it'd be a community of excellence, I guess. There'd be no problems. But of course, we all have issues that we work with, and we are a community of excellence too. But with that, I'm going to move it over to Randy Kay, who's going to lead us through the next section with Terry on the internship.
Sure. Well, I'm so glad to have Terry and all of our members of the community of practice here today. We are having our big discussion. When we met last November, on November 8th, there was a really big push to really dive deeper into what are best practices with internships, and how do we really engage and make those experiences really successful and meaningful for both the individual who comes online to be the intern, but also for the staff members working directly with that individual, and for the organization itself to realize the impact and also the potential of working with young people. What Terry Carpenter has done is created an incredible guidebook to help us have a discussion and kind of go deeper onto what it means to be an employer working with an intern, what kind of expectations should we have, how do we help cultivate their abilities as an intern, and how do we make for an overall successful internship for both employer and individual. Terry, thank you for sharing both the guidebook as well as the tools that you've put together. Would love to have you provide sort of a introduction and overview of what you were trying to accomplish and how you got started and what you're hoping to get out of this discussion today with our colleagues in the community in practice.
Thank you, Randy Kay. So SETA actually produced a internship guide and toolkit, it's probably been like 10 years ago. And what happened is the guide actually got buried and no one was using it. And so through this work and the community of practice meeting, I had this aha moment that, oh my gosh, we could use a local internship guide and toolkit for employers. Basically, the premise is to provide direction and input or resources to the employer so that they can use it as a way to develop an internship. Those organizations that already participate in an internship program have their own tools or can have used or developed some of their own materials. But many organizations, the last thing they really think of is how to make a youth-friendly workplace and how do you really go about developing an internship program. So the guide has been developed from the employer's perspective, or an organization, nonprofit, private sector, public sector, that wants to bring on an internship and make a start at maybe doing a formal internship, doing a pilot internship, basically providing some general guidelines that they can curtail to their own organization, where they can really open and expand their opportunities for young people. They are the future workforce of our community, and they're the talent pool that all employers need to consider when developing their workforce. And we want to continue to increase that awareness from the employer perspective. So if we can basically pretty much give them a turnkey guide and tools and resources that can make it easy for them to navigate and put something together, I think that's the big hurdle that will help us to expand and basically motivate employers to continually develop more internship and work experience programs. With that being said, the guide, you have the guide and the toolkit. This is the first draft round. There are obviously some things, sections that need to be added based on some preliminary feedback that I've already gotten. I'm looking for input from you all. Is there some real big areas that are missing? I think if there's some redundancy in certain areas, I'd like to know that. We've researched about 20 different resources when we put this together. So we looked at Kazan, we looked at, Tulare County, Department of Labor, all these, probably about 15 different guides and resources that we evaluated, all of the different tools and kits that were out there. And we really picked some of what we thought were the best and the necessary things that an employer may need. We don't want to overwhelm the employer thinking, oh my gosh, I've got to read a 20-page guide and, this is going to take me like a whole, I need another staff person to implement that. That's really not the message we want to send. So again, feedback as far as that kind of a focus in the guide and the toolkit. You know, you guys can see that the table of contents, what's included. I really think the tools, the quick tips are not need to be referenced in each of the sections. That needs to be added. I would like to put this, have this guide available electronically so that if you click on a tip or a tool, it automatically drives you to the document if it's the assessment or the evaluation. So you don't have to hunt through two different sections to make it easy for them to find the tools. I guess that's kind of my overview, and I'm just going to kind of open it up for questions at this point.
And everyone,
or input.
I sent the guidebook again this morning, but if it's not right in front of you, it's also in the handout section of your webinar platform.
So just to let you know some of the sections that are missing, maybe that'll help kind of fuel some input. Second of all, a lot of us, you know, we review something and then oftentimes we come back to it, or if you haven't had a chance to really go through all of the sections, you do not have to provide me direct input on this webinar today. You can give me your general comments. You can mark up. You can make notes on the document. You can schedule a call with me, or you can email me. I'm open to whatever method is easiest for you to provide feedback, because we do want to make this a resource that it will be utilized by our partners. I was trying to make the publications general enough to where certain organizations, the end result where you could add your own logo, so that you have some recognition for your own program, if you know, so that you could use it if you want to for your own purpose. I tried to also make sure that it wasn't just a total set of Sacramento Works document that is just specific to our organization. So I'm looking for feedback on that. My idea is probably I'll move the logos to the back page, because I really want this to be utilized by as many people as possible, and I don't want them to have a preconceived notion that it's a piece that's marketing a specific program for Sacramento Works or SETA. But some of the areas, just to let you know, so one of the suggestions was, how do we actually, a section that would provide ideas and how to design projects for an internship that would utilize 21st century skills for an intern. A section on dealing with special populations such as foster youth and LGBT, excuse me. More information and resources on different payment of internships, stipend versus using like the internship source that's a payroll processing program through the Community College Foundation, where you can hold a contract and actually they're the employer of record and the workers' comp is built in, so it takes the liability off of the employer, adding that information into the guide. And then a special section for the construction industry, because that industry has some specific nuances of putting under 18 into certain types of, more dangerous type of work environments, and how you can navigate that to still encourage under 18 to be placed in their construction internships. So that's pretty much all I have, other than, I don't want to go through each section unless you want me to. If there's any tools that are missing, we need to reference the tips and tools throughout the guide. That part is missing. So I'm going to stop talking now.
Well, you have so much to say, because this is an incredibly well done document, and you've already got a few questions from your colleagues here in the community practice. Some of them are curious if they can borrow it, and you maybe do some plagiarism of it if you don't mind. And it sounds like you already gave them permission.
Yes.
Not leveraging available resources. So, yeah.
Oh yeah, I'll write that in the grant report. So I think right now we sent it out as a PDF. So if others want to use it, we can send it out as a Word if that's a. If you have
Yes,
it in
I
that
can
format.
definitely do that. The other thing too, I forgot to mention is I was going to try to make all the forms kind of fill in. So if an employer wanted to like download them or whatever to make it easier so you're not working with hard copies.
That's amazing. Wow. Well, you've got some questions from some of your colleagues. I do want to remind folks, I believe your lines are all unmuted unless you've self-muted.
I'm trying to find the questions on the webinar.
I think they're coming to me directly.
So
perhaps people can feel free to just start chatting because I believe all the lines are open. So I think Marianne, maybe you had a question.
Sorry, I was my phone was locked and in my pocket and trying to unmute it. So sorry, it took me a little while. Terry, this is really a great resource. It's been something that I actually built in some money into our budget for this grant to help to prepare something like this. So you've helped my workload quite a bit on this. I appreciate it very much. A few of the questions, I'd love to be able to use it and just want to make sure that I can give credit, so how that looks like, to offer some credit for the preparation of it. So just let us know on that. And then just wondering when the final version might be done.
Well, my goal is to have it completed by the, let's see, we're at the, taking all the feedback from today, giving them maybe until the middle of next week if there's an additional feedback after the webinar. And then the worst case scenario is to have it available by the end of the month.
Oh, perfect. Okay, great. What I did notice that in a couple of the sections on specifically page 24 of the tips and tools, you're referencing this specific woman, Deborah Moch Shelley.
Oh, I know. That was a placeholder. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, that's one of the edits that's already on my copy. I thought what we would do is make that a generic to where if you want to put your own contact information in there, I was going to basically set it up to where we could do that.
Got it. And then I would just offer that there may be a couple other resources that you might want to add into your the book is the National Academy Foundation, NAF. They're nationwide, and there are a lot of people around the state that use them. They might be a good resource there. And then Launchpad is the internship software that's utilized, and it's also connected with the Foundation for California Community Colleges. What you may want to think about is some little qualifier as far as, you make a statement here about workers' compensation, and rather than putting it as a statement, you might want to qualify it just to protect yourself a little bit, because everything's kind of different, right?
Right.
Just as a protector, especially with legal issues,
Yes.
And then we had a situation in Oxnard where the school district had its own policy about internships. So about that the students needed to have to be paid, at minimum wage. So there may be some local issues that everybody needs to look at. Yeah, I'm more concerned about these legal issues. The other thing is that in addition to Career Catalyst of the foundation, employment agencies offer the employment of record. So there's other ways to get around that. When I spoke with Tim Aldinger from the foundation recently, they would like to have a contract that has many employers, not just like a small company with a couple of internships that are going in. So really kind of a larger amount is what he's looking for. So just offer those things. Thank you.
Marianne, can you expand on that for a little bit? I'm just not quite understanding. Can you share a little bit more?
About the contracts?
About employer of record and what Tim was looking for by having multiple employers or multiple interns?
Yeah, so, we're the business intermediary here in Ventura. And so he was looking at, could he develop one contract with us? And then we worked with the smaller companies that may want to only hire one or two interns, rather than the foundation writing a contract with each company.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just if there's one organization that can hold the contract with the foundation, and then you hire them through there.
That model is what SETA does. We have a contract with the community college foundations. It's the other side. So there's the Foundation of Community Colleges Career Catalyst, which is the back end payroll for LaunchPath. Then there's the Community College Foundation, which is local here in Sacramento region, and they have what's called the Intern Source. And we actually have a contract with them, and so we can run any type of internship placement, payroll, multiple companies, whatever, because we have that master contract, and so they just bill us for the wages, and then we pay it that way. So it does.
Okay.
Those umbrella contracts are a good way to do that.
Yeah. Okay.
We'd love to hear from some of our other colleagues in the community of practice about your reflections, anything that you'd like to see added to the document, or what kind of tips or tools that you might be able to offer as a resource to make this more comprehensive. Given that we're all working with public sector agencies, is there anything that we need to consider or add to this material?
Hey there, this is Ian from West Sacramento. I just wanted to echo what's been said. That both of these are really comprehensive, detailed resources that, particularly the tips and tricks, I could see us really leveraging some of the documents that you've provided in here for our internship program, particularly for the evaluation component.
Yeah.
Terry, I sent you some more pointed feedback just on things that you might consider adding for both the guidebook and the tips and tools, but I just wanted to kind of get some general feedback for both of them. For the tips and tools, I think that, like I said, it's great, and I can see the application of it. You might think about adding some specific case studies or more narrative-driven sections that you would just kind of include in each of the sections, maybe a case study on evaluation or a case study on self-assessment or an effective mentorship. That way, to a HR rep or to a professional, and Sarah, who's sitting right next to me, might be a better person to provide context for this. But I could see how someone would read through this guidebook and think to themselves, well, this is all useful, but
how do I apply it?
Right, this isn't praxis. This isn't written by somebody from my experience. So, that might kind of get them to the yes. If they're
I love that suggestion.
Yeah, and we can offer, some case studies here. I don't know how deep you want it in the public sector stuff, but, we can help you cross the finish line. Something that I was kind of struggling with is the section, I think it's section 5 tips and tools number 3, development characteristics of adolescence.
Yeah.
I'm not coming from
I almost pulled that out, but then I thought, well, I don't want to be too. So yeah.
Ian, for those of us who are folding through our papers, what page are you referring to? You're in the tips and tools, and
yes, page 6.
Yeah,
section number 3.
Okay.
And what's the concern about it?
So my concern is that this is going to enhance age bias, and I feel that, showing, not telling is the best way. And it's almost in the rest of the document, a lot of these concerns are being addressed, but in indirect and substantial ways. But by having this section so high in the document and so detailed, I feel that it would cause potential employers or, internship providers providers to diminish and be more selective and almost punitive to youth because of the developmental characteristics that we all know is part of human brain development. So I think the sections on foster youth, I think the sections on LGBT youth are pertinent. I just have some concerns and reservations about having this so high in the document, and also how it could potentially enhance age bias and kind of guide intern providers to not necessarily marginalizing, but maybe diminishing.
Wanting an older intern over 18. That was my other thing. Is it's like, what about an intern that's over 18?
Right. And for like a case study, we could provide Alicia, who was the youngest intern in her cohort when we started the STEPS program 3 years ago. She was 16, and not only has she contributed substantially culturally, but she's a perennial intern now. She works in our community outreach and community relations department. So,
What about this idea? What if I just reference the resource, working with teens, in the resource section, and that is along with all the other links and resources, you could always go to finding out more information. It's just an idea.
So the resources in the back of the guidebook, or you just want to add this one, or?
Well, I could do both. I might move the resources. Well,
I'd like to ask your fellow colleagues in community practice. I do appreciate Ian bringing and raising this issue. For those of you who have worked with both the employers and finding the spots to create the work-based learning experience, as well as working with youth, is this something that you think that should be in the tips and tools, or do you think that we should offer it as a resource? Does anybody have any strong feeling or suggestion one way or the other?
This is Mary Ann. I think what our businesses have found is that our students do amazing work, and they were surprised at the work that was performed by them. I understand Ian's comments about that. I don't know that it's going to be a factor of whether or not they choose to move ahead or not. I mean, I think that they're more concerned about legal issues and bringing in someone who's under 18, and how does that all work? That's what it always comes up. I think if you provide some examples of work that's been performed by interns, and things that they've done, I think people will be very, very surprised about it. I don't know.
That is actually an interesting idea. So to create space where there's a room to kind of demonstrate what's possible, what can a 14-year-old intern create, what can a 15 or 16-year-old intern create, and then maybe kind of tag this kind of document so there's awareness around where their strengths and capabilities are.
We are looking at in the county of Ventura, they do strengths assessments, and they have a specific program that they work with. So we're going to provide that to each one of the interns that's going in to the internship this year. And so it gives them, the mentors, the idea of, okay, I'm not going to focus necessarily on their age, but I'm going to focus on their strengths. And so it's going to surround it. So it's shifting the topic a little bit.
Ian, would that satisfy some of your concerns if it was presented in that format?
I think that would certainly make a better case for the types of work products that youth can provide. Yeah, and I think that just having that approach dovetail with kind of the case studies and creating more narrative-driven examples would provide a different context that would make, employers feel more comfortable if that was their first time. And that's my second comment for the kind of the internship guidebook, not the tips and tricks or tips and tools document, is that one might want to create 3 different versions of this, or one for someone who's starting completely new, one for someone who's expanding their program, or one who's working specifically with foster youth or at-risk youth. Just because when I was kind of reading through this, I saw that while some of the information was really pertinent, I would either reorganize it for an internal audience, or maybe highlight specific sections if I was going to share it with a colleague who worked in a different context, a different municipal government, or if Future Ready, who's our intermediary here, was going to share it with someone. The way that they would plagiarize it is just change it so it was valuable for someone who maybe had hosted an intern in the past but wanted to host more interns, or younger interns, or interns in different departments or divisions.
I was wondering if people would be willing to share, if you haven't already, or to remind us if you have, examples of what your interns have done, the kinds of projects that they've done in some of your different departments.
Yeah, that would be great.
I'm just typing up an email to Terry. I mean, I'm happy to send it to everybody, but like I put a sample projects for different departments within government, about what they can do. I do have examples of some of the things that our students have done. I'm happy to share that if they're not already on the toolkit.
Yeah, well, I think just maybe helping us find it, if it is, I think it's just a lot.
We do have a lot of content on the toolkit that we will be sharing with Terry to see if we can add more and contribute more to this guidebook. It's certainly fresher examples, because even though we just did the toolkit last year, you guys have interns going year-round, and anything contemporary, especially if it relates to any online work products that they've done, websites or whatever, it'd be great to have something fresh to click through, especially if this becomes an online tool as well, Terry. I would definitely like to get newer examples. So one of the things that I'm requesting as we go through summer 2018 is to keep us in mind. Share us pictures of what your interns are accomplishing. Share with us pictures. Share with us stories. And then if you can, if they're producing actual documents or materials, if they're available publicly, send them to us so that we can share them with the broader audience as well. That is a kind of a mini homework assignment in general. I'm looking for feedback on what's being accomplished through your work as individuals, but also those of your interns.
Excuse me, this is Kristen. Before we move on from the tips and tools, the developmental characteristics, I just want to clarify something. I agree that with Ian's point that this might put people off, or it might make them anxious about hiring youth. But I also am wondering if it's there not so much to I guess because the concern would be that people who are not used to working with youth might not know how, and so it's to kind of like prepare them. Is there a way that we can reframe it, or if we can find a way to restructure that and say, here are some ways to work with youth. These are ways that it might differ from the way that you're used to working with your adult peers, so that it puts it onto the employer, as opposed to saying, be careful when you work with 14-year-olds. They're kind of hormonal. Would that be a way to maybe look at it?
Yeah.
I think that's a good suggestion as well. And maybe the tips can be ordered in any way, so we could put that back, or we could change the document to say, basically focusing on a characteristic and what types of projects allow a youth to perform well, or flipping it instead of focusing on, hey, here's some of what your suggestion to make it more, to reframe it.
Yeah, because I think the impulse is good because it is watching. As a teacher, watching oftentimes, having adult guest speakers or something come in and not being able to communicate with youth, not because they're not good communicators, but because they just aren't used to communicating with youth. So I think it's a good idea to have some suggestions in there, but I think it's just the framing of it could color how it's approached.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I was just going to say that, framing it in, as you can in a positive way too, saying that
Right.
it's a great opportunity for these kids as they're learning kind of more about, themselves, their careers and all that stuff, and they've got this, as you well know, the whole range of emotions that they go through, but it's great that we have an opportunity to have a positive relationship as an adult with you, and go into the whole research about, the benefit or the effect of one positive relationship, something like that too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I could see it maybe being framed as tips on how to work with youth based on their developmental stages. And I was just looking at this eager for opportunities to make decisions. So one tip is give young people choices. Right? When you're offering them an assignment, give them choices, or make it clear where they can make a decision versus where they have to ask permission.
In my experience, that's good tips just for working with humans.
Okay. So anyway, so we could take a crack at it. Terry, I'd be glad to sit and think with you on that, and we have some educators here in the room. So
sounds like you're getting some great feedback from your colleagues here in the community in practice. There's a couple areas that we spoke about at our November COP that I thought we might want to dive in a little bit stronger here, and that's to cover funding and kind of payment statements, policies or rules around that, and then of course transportation. I heard a little bit of dialogue around employers of record, but this is really a good time for those of you that have questions. We're planning for 2018 right now. If you have a question about how to do your funding or transportation, let's talk. Let's hear from your peers and find out what we can solve together. And I will call upon certain folks if you need me to help, but I am looking for some. Does anybody have any particular challenges right now with arranging for how to pay or any policies or issues regarding funding?
Well, I'd like to share a solution. So that happened to me recently. This is Marianne in Ventura County. The city of Oxnard had interns for the 2 previous years, and they were getting paid $250 a piece, which to work a 60-hour internship, I just didn't feel was adequate. So I kind of pushed a little hard this year with the city liaison and said, look, guys, you really need to find a way to pay these students at least minimum wage. So it's really important to have the right person in the right seat, and to have that person be creative. And what happened with our situation was that our liaison is the assistant police chief, and he said, well, we have this asset forfeiture account. And I'm like, what the heck is that? And he said that it's where the police get assets that have been forfeited through drugs and gangs and stuff like that. And a percentage of that account has to go to drug and gang prevention. So he felt that our Summer at City Hall program would qualify for that, and they could pay for the internships through that. So it was a new account that I had no idea about, but we need to have people inside the governmental agencies that are aware of different pools of money that are available, and that was one of them. We ultimately ended up not using it, but used a sales tax initiative that was for undesignated programs and fees that we ended up using. But that's still out there, and I don't know if it's standard around every city and the counties, but it might be a way for you to look into one solution to pay for the students.
Stacy with Pro, isn't that something that you guys have access to as well?
Say that one more time.
The asset forfeiture account, isn't that something that you guys have to get access to?
We have had it off and on for years. But it's, become more and more difficult to be able to access. But we do. I mean, we have that conversation. We've had that conversation. The sheriff's department supports all the work that we do at Pro, which is the youth development work. But again, I didn't have that last year, and I reapplied this year. So
Okay.
yeah. And
it sounds like
go ahead.
It's an interesting fund to consider. So
Yeah.
for as you're looking into your partnerships, it might be a good place to have a starting point conversation. Find out what the rules or opportunities might be around that source.
That money, that money is for prevention. So all of that falls into that. I mean, we've utilized it for supporting, again, all of our stuff. So, yeah.
But other communities might not have thought of it yet. So it's a good.
Yeah. Thank you, Mary Ann and Stacey, for sharing your insight into that particular resource. I am curious. Are there any concerns about having? Are you hearing any concerns about having government dollars pay for specific student stipends or student interns? Anybody facing that challenge?
No.
We had
can you hear me?
I think that I might have heard Carrie and then also Ian.
Oh, yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, Carrie. Thank you.
Oh,
Join
yeah.
us.
Finally.
Yay.
So we've had trouble with paying for the internships out of the general fund, and so this is a really good suggestion that I'm going to go back and ask about, because now that we're going to do it as they're getting summer school credits, we're kind of counting okay, well, it's that or paid internships, but if we were able to find money somewhere else, in one of these types of accounts, that might be something that we could do.
So Carrie, Sacramento divided the thinking about credit versus pay, and what we told the kids is they get credit for being in the class, and then they get paid for doing the internships. So we kind of bifurcated it so that people weren't feeling like the kids were double dipping. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I think just under. What was that? Sorry.
Go on.
Oh, just what our deputy city manager Kara had worked. I guess the direction she got was that we want to do it's one or the other, unless we could pay for it in some other way, but it wasn't going to come out of the general fund account.
But perhaps, because Elk Grove, I think this year you're going to be doing kind of your civic side of the project with continuing the mock council, but then you're also adding on more of an internship component.
Yes.
So it could be that perhaps the time spent in the classroom counts towards the credit, and the time spent working one-on-one with staff directly on the kind of projects is what gets paid.
That sounds like they have a problem with that.
Okay. Well, it's something to explore. We're happy to work on that with you guys to see what avenues exist. Ian, did you have something you wanted to share around this too?
Yeah, I just wanted to talk a little bit about Measure E. So that was our sales tax initiative in November of 2016. And although we didn't have explicit language around what defined a paid internship, it was in the ballot initiative itself. And so we followed up with staff reports to council, which have gone into greater specificity around policy or recommendations for how the money can be used. So I don't know if those staff reports would be useful to folks because they're around a specific sales tax for West Sacramento, but we certainly would be willing and able to share those with folks if staff from cities wanted to bring, recommendations to council for allocation of funds.
That would be very helpful. Thank you. And I don't think we have anything quite like that on our toolkit yet, so that would be appreciated. I am curious if folks aren't necessarily facing challenges with funding, but perhaps we all can relate to the issue or challenges related to transportation. How do we get our youth to their work-based learning experience on time? How do we make sure that they've got transportation to and from? Anybody have any particular challenges they're facing around transit right now, and any potential creative solutions that you'd like to share?
This is Kristen again. I know that transportation for our students to and from internships is always an issue, and I just wondered, is there a possibility of working with RT to have some kind of a special transit pass for them or something? I don't know that would, certainly wouldn't solve all problems, because not all transportation goes where all the kids need to go, but it might be something to look at least as one measure to kind of help the transportation issue.
So this is Terry in Sacramento, and so we are currently, sitting on a transportation kind of team, and we got some kind of paratransit type buses donated from regional transit that went to some of our community providers. I believe Elk Grove School District did take one of those. And then we're also, but outside of that, what we're doing is we're working with paratransit locally here, to where we're trying to set up some different models where you can someone can have access to a van that would hold 8 youth to be dropped off or to be utilized to get them to internships. Also looking at Uber and Lyft to see if that methodology or transportation can be used to where an intern can call up and get dropped off to their internship. So we're kind of looking at those different models to see how we might be able, kind of like, teen transit in a nutshell. Mm-hmm. So we've just started the work. We had some vendor proposals, so we can keep you posted and share that out with the group as when we get some finalization on how those options are going to flesh out here.
That's great. Kristen again at Health Professions. I would just want to make sure that we bring a district official in on this, because there may be some, or in fact not just maybe, I'm sure there are restrictions about who can drive vans with students in them and that kind of thing, and we would want to make sure that we're cognizant of those before we come up with a solution that ends up kids can't ride.
So Jane Ross from Elk Grove is on the team. Elk Grove Unified School District, but paratransit basically would provide the drivers and they're covered as far as insurance. So yeah, all of that is being looked at, because we know that's a big issue, especially when you're transporting young people. But we do have district staff on the team to look at those types of issues.
And then there's always paying for bus passes. So RT sometimes RT does split the cost with the city or the school district. They have like a reduced rate. You can buy a bulk number of bus passes. They're reduced cost, and they turn to your students for free.
I think right now a K-12 bus pass is $20.
Yeah, and they have actually in Sacramento at least, they've reduced the cost for students for a monthly bus.
I'd love to hear from some of our other cities and school partners on the line. Salinas, West Sacramento, Rancho Cordova. How are you getting your youth to and from, or is it a responsibility of the youth if they sign up? This is something they take care of themselves, and how are you addressing any transit issues?
Hi, this is Demetrius with Pro Youth.
This is Anna from Salinas. Really to the program, we do offer transportation. We're lucky enough that our department have 2 vans that we can use. We also offer summer bus passes. We have noticed that a lot of our youth don't use them, and I don't know if they don't feel safe or it just takes too long. I mean, our transit is not the best, but we do have options for them.
Great. And those are good things to learn as users of public services. Do they feel safe, and is it a valuable service to them? I thank you for sharing that. And I believe that Demetrius is also on the line and wanted to share. Demetrius, I invite you to maybe get a little closer to your microphone so everyone can hear you loud and clear. And please share.
Perfect, no problem. Can you hear me now?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Sure, no problem. I'm actually in Stacy's office. I'm sitting far away, so I just moved a little closer. Our transportation
People
issues,
stay far away from me.
Oh, we don't have transportation issues. We're lucky enough in that the students, the youth that participate in our program, they just all happen to live within close proximity to City Hall where the internships are. So they are responsible for their own transportation, and we have not had a problem finding enough applicants to fill the 15 internships who, and they all have transportation. So fortunately for us, it has not been an issue.
I am, though, do you think there are students that won't apply because they know there's no transportation offered?
Yes, that is a good question.
Yes, I think so.
Of the 26 students that we have, only one or two said that transportation would be an issue. Now, I say only one or two. I'm of course always concerned when there's any kid who can't take advantage of the opportunity. But relative to the issues that we have with transportation with other programs, for the most part, it hasn't been of a concern to us. And we tried to work with the two students who did have transportation issues, and quite honestly, as it turned out, there were other issues that were going on as well, family dynamics, other issues that were going on that sort of made the transportation issue a little bigger.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, I really appreciate everyone sharing in this section and providing great feedback to Terry to incorporate as she develops the final version of her guidebook, as well as the tips and tools handout. If you have any particular feedback, Terry is requesting that you send it to her by next week so that we can continue to see the momentum on that document. And Terry did share that her document would be done by the end of the month, and we'll all be able to use it as a resource on our own. And Institute team will also be seeing what we can add from our current toolkit to offer to Terry to assist there. All right, with that, I'm going to go ahead and move on and invite Rena to lead you in another discussion.
So we would like to just spend a few minutes, like 15 minutes, I believe, just brainstorming with you guys if there are other challenges that you're facing that you want to put out to the group to do some group problem solving around. So what we want to do is quickly go through a round of just asking each group to state maybe one challenge they feel they're facing, and then what we'll do is we'll list them and see if there's any clustering. And if not, we'll just pick one and maybe dive a little deeper together. So.
And everybody's line is unmuted, so if you've self-muted, you'll need to do that for yourself. So.
And challenges could range anything from trouble recruiting students to having trouble working with your partners to anything else you're experiencing. Like can't pay your phone bill. No, just kidding. Okay, so could we ask maybe Elk Grove, would you be willing to start us off with a challenge that you're facing?
Sure. I think that majority is probably getting the internship paid is probably like our biggest challenge, just because of like funding and how that's supposed to work. But we are excited that we're expanding it in general from the 2 weeks to 5 weeks now. And so I feel like that there's probably challenges in that we don't know yet. But we're really excited in that sense. I don't know if Carlos wants to add.
Yeah, well, I was just going to kind of echo what Carrie was saying, just kind of the growing pains of the unforeseen realities of expanding the program. The money has been something, that we focused on for a lot of our initial planning meetings. And so what that did, was kind of dominate our focus. And so at this point, we're going forward with the expectation, at least in terms of the students, that it's going to be an unpaid internship. We would like to be able to kind of surprise them. I mean, part of our plan would be, if we can get the funding piece together, that we would wait until the program started in order to let them know that they were going to be paid for their work, as kind of a nice surprise for them, and also helping to ensure that we're going to get the students that are there for the best possible reasons, as opposed to the monetary reward. But we're in the middle of this recruitment, and so we're hoping that we're going to get plenty of response and have great candidates, even if we're advertising it as being unpaid.
Okay, great. So money for internships. But if we go to the next person, Terry, any challenge you want to state?
I think that, my portion of the GEY program, or SETA's portion, was the foster youth to work. And I think the challenges for us was, we're still trying to place the last 3 of the 20 pilot that we started last June. It's just dealing with their a lot of their life situations, and just basically just to keep moving forward with them, and realizing that we're really trying to look at maybe pairing up our next program with a case manager and a youth advocate. So I'm researching and doing some outreach with a couple of organizations here in Sacramento that actually have youth advocates that deal on a regular basis with the issues that are faced by foster youth, or those that have, a lot of, lifelong type barriers of that, with that kind of a situation. So we're looking at maybe expanding that personal support role that the youth has when they are moving through the training and the employment placement piece, to help them navigate through some of the life issues, which come from, mental health to just a whole host of different things. And so I would say that was our biggest challenge.
So, okay, thanks. So more mentoring and more support of youth who face a lot of challenges. Okay. And then health professions.
Sorry, I just realized I was still muted. I think, just continuing to build relationships with more agencies. But, my personal focus is primarily with the Y plan and getting kids to have that interaction, certainly more supported at 10th grade level, but so that they then become really good candidates for internships, and that when they get to their internships, they're a little bit better prepared, so the outcome is better. So we had talked about in the debrief when we were working with the Housing and Redevelopment Authority this time around. And one of the things that came up in the debrief was that, while we're doing that project, if there were more opportunities for city employees to come and mentor in the class when kids are developing those skills, that it would build the relationships on a, so it's not a constant basis where you have a kid who's an intern all the time, but they get some kind of gradual kind of easing into like what those responsibilities would be and how those departments work, and the kind of requirements that would be involved.
Okay, so the challenge, or what you're trying to figure out, is how to create more relationships between, I'm just trying to paraphrase, between your students and possible agencies or city staff who can, in a way, mentor or guide students or just provide more information about what they do? Did I capture that right? Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, a lot of that will fall to me just because I'm the unchanging part that's always here. So just, I think, trying to figure out how to make that part of my ongoing work is to, make and maintain those relationships.
Okay. So it's around really creating partnerships with organizations.
Yeah.
How do you find time to do that, and how do you maintain those relationships? Okay, great. Next group is Pro Youth. Any challenges you want to put out there that you're struggling with, or you'd like maybe the group to help you think about?
Yeah, so our biggest challenge, and I don't really see it's a challenge that we cannot overcome, but it's getting a better cross section of youth to participate in our programs, or in the Summer at City Hall program.
Mm-hmm.
So all of our students right now are from one high school, and that's Cordova High School. That's mainly because at Cordova we were given the opportunity by the administration to do some in-class recruitment. And so we were in several different classes, reached several hundred students, which made it easier for us. But unfortunately, we were unable to offer that in-class recruitment by the other schools in the district. So moving forward, we're just looking to put more effort towards working with school administration at the other middle schools and high schools in the Rancho Cordova area, so that we can get a better mix of students.
Great.
We might know someone who used to work there that can help out with that.
Excellent.
Okay.
Take any and all help.
So student recruitment in order to get a more diverse group of students.
Yes. Obviously, there's always a certain culture at every school, and of course the kids all know each other, which is good on one hand. However, to make that program more effective, getting students used to working with people who they typically don't work with on a regular basis or from different neighborhoods is obviously one of the big purposes that leads towards youth development. So that's our biggest challenge that we're looking to overcome.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Dina?
Yeah?
Do you mind if I jump in? Because I'm going to have to jump in my car.
Oh, yeah, sure. Go on, Marianne. Your challenge.
Okay, great, thanks. My challenge surrounds time. And so it's about me having enough time to dedicate to the program, and balance it with the other priorities that I have, that I work on. And then secondly, it's the school timing. So getting in the internships available and ready for the students to apply for the internships before they register for summer school. So there's a balance there of providing the opportunity so the student chooses the Summer City Hall program rather than summer school program. So it's getting it in early enough in the spring so they can make the choice and be selected. And then the third thing is the business timeliness. So to have both of the cities and the county departments prepare their projects that they have for the summer, and then to be able to put that into LaunchPath. So we utilize LaunchPath as the matching mechanism. And so the students have to have their information in, the businesses have to have their information in, and then the match happens after that. So getting everybody moving in the right direction in a timely manner is quite a challenge.
Okay, thank you. So time to do recruitment and to get your businesses uploaded.
Yeah, and to get the projects defined, and because of course everybody has their own priorities during the work. So I'm throwing a new wrinkle in the workload of the people at the city and the county. So it's where's the priority on it?
Okay. So we have two more people to talk about their challenges, and I'm not sure we're going to get to have enough time to dive into them, but we'll see if we can try to pick one. So, City of Salinas, challenge you're facing?
We're relatively young with our Youth and Government Institute, so we've been fortunate to have our program run really smoothly. The only challenge that I can think of is two of our alumni were supposed to be appointed to the Library and Community Services Commission. They're supposed to be full-on, voting members, and then we realized that our city ordinance doesn't allow for that. So we really haven't tackled that. We have had the conversation of going back to council and, changing that because, our participants are younger than 18, and whether they're U.S. citizens or just residents or might be, undocumented. So that's what we're trying to figure out.
Okay. You need to look at possibly changing a city policy around appointment of younger kids under 18 to some of your commissions.
Yes.
Okay. Actually, I just talked to someone in Monterey that's having the same problem, so maybe I could connect you guys together. Okay. I'm gonna go to the last to West Sac. Challenge you want to share?
Okay, so Ian and I were talking about, since this is the fourth year for the internship program, and how to make the procedures and policies more streamlined so we can, be more effective and efficient. I guess our biggest challenge so far. And I think over time that will become a little bit more clear and a little more easier, but for now.
Okay. So streamlining your policies and procedures related to your internship program.
Yep, particularly reduce the amount of staff time that's required year to year.
From an administrative perspective? Or the amount of time spent mentoring individuals?
The administrative time. So the creation of digital badges is a choke point. We're working on backwards mapping our badge experiences from the last 2 years, so that we have a set of standardized badge experiences, and the only thing that would need to change year to year are the projects, which are new to the intern and new to the department and division, and also streamlining the evaluation component, so we don't need to change that substantially year to year, just reduce the amount of time that HR, the mentors, and that the senior management staff need to spend on that component.
Okay. Well, I definitely think time has been a theme, time to create partnerships, time to streamline policies, time to plan the program. So maybe that's something we could even take up at our next COP meeting a little bit. I feel like we only have like 3 minutes left, and I was wondering if it would be one that seems like we could do like a 2-minute brainstorm around, might be around student recruitment ideas and how to diversify your base of students. I'm just curious if people would want to, for 2 minutes, anyone want to jump in and offer thoughts on how they've attracted more diverse sets of students? And I'll just throw one idea out. I know in Yuba City we really worked closely with the AVID program at the school sites, which tend to get your like B and C grade students. And so if you have AVID programs in your schools, you might want to think about partnering with those teachers. Any other thoughts on diversifying recruitment of students?
Something we did in the city of Salinas was reaching out to Rancho Cielo, which is an organization that works with low-income, at-risk youth, and we actually had a few of their students complete the program, so that was good.
Are they a nonprofit?
Yes, they are.
Okay, so maybe going to your nonprofit partners that work with targeted subgroups.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Other ideas? A lot of districts have foster youth coordinators, and so that'd be another group. Find your foster youth coordinator at your school district, and possibly see about them making recommendations for foster youth that could be you could get them interested in your program. Any last thoughts before we move on?
I think those are great ideas. I mean, if you are working with a city group, even council members themselves likely have kind of organizations, nonprofits that they tend to work with and try to help support. They likely have ideas of where to go to reach those hard-to-reach youth. So don't be afraid to make that relationship as well, and let them know that you really want to serve that audience. It's part of the messaging that we need to do is remind people that we are trying to reach all youth, not just those at the cream of the top getting the 4.0s. We want to reach all youth so that our local governments, build that diversity in their workforce so that they represent the greater community. And we want to make sure that all youth of all abilities and all resources are seen as assets in their community too.
So I'm going to hand this over to Frank.
All right. So remember last time we were together, we were talking about the why. We had you watch the Simon Sinek video and identify what is the why, the motivation for your program. And very much different potentially from the who and the what, or the how and the what, the what you do and how you do it, but really it's the why. And the thing that we always take away from that is that people buy why you do something, not necessarily what you do. And so that really leads to being able to identify the messages for the different audiences that you might have. As you know, and as we talked about all morning, you're not just talking to business, you're talking to business and school groups and kid groups and adult groups and everywhere else in between. So while we might have the same why, the messaging is going to be different for those groups. And so we're really lucky to have Tim Herrera, who's the Direct SCOE Communications Director, and I can say award-winning because just last week he was awarded the Communicator of the Year. See, I can't even communicate because I'm in awe. Now, he was the Communicator of the Year from the California School Public Relations Association, so he was awarded this prestigious honor. And the SCOE Communications Office won for 4 different projects that we had done over the course of the year as well. So Tim has a wealth of knowledge in media. He has been with SCOE since 2005, and before that was with KCRA, and was you may have seen him on the news for a while. So
if you have a really old TV set,
yeah, I've got some Betamax to have Tim. No, so basically what I'm saying is we've got the right person in the room here about communicating the why and how do you put some things together. And I'll tell you one thing, as I met with Tim, that he offered up that Randy Kay and Hong or anybody in the room really knows about yet. He's put some amazing things together for us using nothing more than his iPhone and iMovie, because he did that for our showcase, actually. If you remember that, the video he put together was all done with the iPhone. And so he's offered at another point in the future to do a hands-on training here at the county office for us or whoever on how to do that. Bring your phone and bring iMovie and start creating. So look for that coming around soon, that we can definitely put that, at least for some of our local folks, we can have that together. So again, I want to hand it over. I'll come back with a little bit of homework later for the August meeting, but I want to hand it over to Tim to really talk about kind of communicating the why and mapping what you're doing and messaging and some tips and tricks for that. So Tim, take it away.
All right. So Frank's introduction is probably longer than my presentation. So
because I'm not as good of a communicator.
But I'm happy to be here and always happy to help. And we're going to do a little presentation on preparing media messages. And so happy to take questions at any point, or we can wait till the end, or whatever you'd like to do. But I guess I'll just start out by saying that messaging is hard, and we'll kind of get into the why of that as well. So what is a message? That's kind of the easy question, but it's a hard one to answer, because it's hard to be concise about things that we're really passionate about, because we know so much about it, and sometimes we don't really collect our thoughts about it because we're trying so hard to convince people why what we think is important. And so that's kind of what we'll get into. So you need a message is a concise point, or points. It's more than one. And it's something you want your audience to know and remember, and you want it to stick. And that's why it's hard, because you want to pick the right words and the right way to say it. And it takes a lot more effort than you think it does. And so, you want to tell the why of the issue in the program and why it's important in their world and not just yours, because for you it's 24/7 and for them it's not. And so you really need, when you're forming your message, you want to put yourself in their position. Why should they care? And you have to kind of think from their point of view. And so messages are key points that you want to get across. And so developing them really takes time and it takes effort, because you really have to whittle down your thoughts, because right now you probably have 1,000 thoughts running through your minds as to why you want people to know what you know and why you want them to think it's important. So whittle down your thoughts, because you have so many ideas, and limit them. Because really, in a conversation, if you were going to sit down with someone for a half an hour, it would be fairly easy to kind of get all your points across, but you're not going to have that much time. Let's say you only corner someone for a few minutes. Or as Frank was referring to video, what if you only had a minute to tell them what you wanted to tell them? How do you do that? And the answer is, you really just have to really invest the time to do that. So why do we create messages? Well, I hate to use the word branding, but it's an unfortunate word that's out there. And really, you want to really let people know your brand and what you're all about. And you do that by, telling success stories. And so by telling your success stories, you're creating goodwill with your audience, and you're explaining your good reputation, because I'm assuming you all have a good reputation. That's why you're here with Frank. And so you're proud of your accomplishments too, because your groups, not only have you done amazing things, but you are in the process of doing amazing things, and you will continue to do great things. And so those are the things you try to get across, because no one can tell your story better than you and the people involved and the people that you've impacted along the way. Bring them in to help you tell your story. You're representing your organization, and you have to represent it well. You have to get your good point across and put your best foot forward and make a good impression. You only have one chance to make a good first impression, and you have to do it right out of the gate. And so you want the right information out there, because you have to take control of your story. Take control of what's being said about you, because if you don't tell your story, someone else will. And they won't tell it as well as you, and it won't come from you. So you really have to be in charge of that. And so in leading the conversation, you want to basically be in control of your own news and in your own message and your own information. So in doing that, one of the things you want to do is get together with your group. Brainstorming is important in things like this. So meet with staff and coworkers and other interested folks to prepare, because you want to meet with people that you trust, people that share your mission and share your ideas. And think of everything you want to say, and start with a lot of options, because you want to start big and end small. Start with a lot of ideas and end with a few, because you really want to end with your best 3 to 5 messages. And the reason is that it's easier for you to remember when you're telling people about yourself, your organization, your group. And it's easier for you to remember, and it's easier for them to remember. Because you want the takeaway of the conversation to be pretty strong. And if you come up with a dozen really good messages, chances are that the people you're speaking to won't remember more than 2 or 3 anyway. So pick the 2 or 3 or 5 that you think are the really solid ones, and stick with that. Just as an example, I'm working with 2 different county superintendents groups. There's the county superintendents group for the state, and then there's the group for Region 3, which is our 10-county region. I won't bore you with the details, because they are boring. But we were kind of tasked with the mission of thinking, how do you tell someone what a county office does? And, you know, we've got Trustee Lefkowitz here. She's been here for, what, 9 months?
6 months.
6 months, and she's still learning. I've been here since 2005. I'm still learning. So how do you express what a county office does? And so we kind of came up with a simple explanation. The county office helps keep the district operating efficiently by ensuring that districts are technically and financially sound, that teachers and administrators are continuously trained, and that students and families are supported educationally, socially, and emotionally. And then from there, you can jump off and talk about all the programs and get really specific. But the bottom line is kind of get to the heart of what you do and who you are. And then from there, you can generate a conversation where people can say, oh, tell me more about students and families. How does that work? So here's just a couple of quick messaging tips. Make your messages simple and stick to your values. Stick to your mission of who you are. Don't try to be global if you're local. Speak in sound bites, and that's the hard part for a lot of people, speaking concisely, because you're all really smart people. You all have really good missions in what you do, but what you're trying to avoid is talking like a textbook, because when you do that, you lose people. Speak simply, and you really get your message across. And, you know, don't just answer questions, but respond with key messages. So what I mean by that is don't avoid their question and just spit out what you want to tell them. Take their question, mold it in such a way that you can respond with one of your messages and how it applies to what they're asking. Don't ask or agree to go off the record in a conversation if you're speaking with media, and there's 1,000 good reasons for that. But the main reason is that if you don't know the person well enough to trust that they'll really say off the record, don't. But that's really another workshop for another time. But finally, practice a lot. Practice makes perfect. You have to really know your messages and know them by heart. And that's why sticking with 3 to 5 is a good practice, because if you go beyond that, you might start mixing your messages and getting off message. So I want to talk briefly about video messaging tips. Frank did mention that I offered to do a workshop for that. You'll have to know 2 things. One is that it'll be free, so you get what you pay for. My background years and years ago is in television, so I was never a photographer, but I learned a lot of tips along the way. So what I can provide for you is shooting with an iPhone, editing with iMovie, and how to get the message out there. And that's the limit of my skill, and I'm happy to share that with you. It's really not that hard, but it takes practice. And so you can trust me, if I can do it, you all can do it. So if you're creating a video message, start with the end in mind. You know, what's your point? What's the point you want to make? Not that you have to create a storyboard, but let's just say your message is you want to attract students for internships. Okay, there's your end. So how do you do that? Think of that as far as, you know, writing down some ideas of points you want to make, and when you're interviewing someone or if you're speaking on camera, make those points. And again, we were talking about messages earlier. Stick to those messages. And just some simple tips for creating videos: be careful of your framing. Be careful of what you have in the background. If you've got a lot of people milling around, if you've got some graffiti that you don't want, or if the lighting is really, really bad, if it's too much light, it'll blow out your picture. And audio is important too. Now, everybody's iPhone is equipped with a microphone, but it's not really a good one. I mean, it's good for ambient sound, but if you really want to capture the audio, I went on Amazon and bought a $20 microphone, and it's been a lifesaver because it really gives you good audio quality. So again, you know, watch your background, be well prepared, and get your messages together. think before you're doing it so that you think ahead of time of the shots that you want. That way, you're not sifting through a bunch of shots you don't need, especially if you're only editing on your phone. I don't know about you, but I wear bifocals, so it's really hard to see really small pictures, and that's why I started using an iPad. So in doing your messaging, here's something I want you to think about that I encourage a lot of people to do. Am I really the one who should be delivering this message? Here at the County Office of Education, my title is Communications Director. Some people say spokesman. I don't like the title of spokesman, and I'll tell you why. I don't want to be the spokesman for anybody. I want to help people delivering their message. That's why I'm blessed to have a superintendent who is very adept at delivering messages. So in some cases, the leader of the organization is really the best person you want to deliver the message because they're the front person. They're the one that's really taking all the responsibility for it. But sometimes that person's maybe not the best equipped. So in some cases, my superintendent will step aside and allow the curriculum person to speak or the program person to speak because they have the knowledge. So think about who is the right person to deliver your message. If it's not you, who is the right person? And is that person prepared to speak on our behalf? So if you want a certain person to speak, whether it's you or someone else, make sure that person is really prepared. Because if they're not, then it really muddles your message and you don't want to do that. And so Frank had created a slide that I guess didn't get into our presentation. There it is. There it is, about homework. Frank, do you want to talk about that?
Sure. So with that, what we did last time is had you go through this kind of, not matrix, but this kind of web almost, identifying the groups that you work with. So what we'd like you to do is identify, and this is obviously offline with your team and with the TA folks that you have, identify a group that's been challenged to connect with, someone that you want to connect with, or even that you are connected with but not as deeply as you'd like to. So identify one of those groups and then create a message about your program or your project designed to get them more involved in your work. And now as you see there, on the left-hand side of your screen there's video, there's an infographic, there's, the megaphone. It may not be a video that you do. It may be an infographic. It may, part of that messaging that Tim talked about is also the media. What is the medium that you need? Because you're probably not going to give a city manager a 17-minute video to go watch this and you'll be on board. You might need to give them a 1-minute thing or literally a piece of paper in front of them. So it's thinking about that, about tailoring the message and the medium of the message to your group. So very simply, it's identifying a group that's been challenging to connect with, identifying that why and really fine-tuning and sculpting that message, and then creating the way to make that happen. So in August, it's another virtual COP, but we'll have an opportunity for you to showcase your message. So it may be the video, that we'll get on and show. It may be a screenshot of an infographic. It may be an audio clip, depending on whatever it is. So we want to give that to you as your homework. Thankfully, it's in March right now, and you have until August. So I think you've got a little bit of time. That doesn't mean you wait until August to start this, but it's good. And then in between time, we'll set up something for sure where Tim can help for the folks that can make it in here. Help to, if you want to shoot the video on that, he can definitely help you with that.
And one thing, too, is to consider with your messaging is think about maybe a social media campaign via Twitter or Facebook where you're just dribbling out messages and you keep driving the audience back to, your website or to an email address or a phone number or whatever. That's a really good way to message because it's continuous. And think about maybe how to deliver a series of messages that way, saying the same thing different ways, and supporting it with photographs or even little video clips like Frank said. I mean, there are a bunch of ways to do it. It's just a matter of what you're comfortable with and what you can do.
I love the idea of the social media campaign, especially as we have so many models that are going out to, an incredible summer experience. Here you have, young people coming into your workplaces at school or municipal settings. This is a chance to showcase your staff and these youth working together and highlight the success that's happening there and promote what your organization does and its mission and that you're working with and developing youth assets. So perhaps we could get the training together prior to maybe June or so.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'll pick it for Tim, but sure, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Frank, sign me up. Sure. He
Thank you.
signed me up for this one while I was out of town, so I shouldn't go out of town anymore.
Hey, I'm not a dummy, you know. You're not in the room. You're the one that's in charge. So.
Yeah, but I'm happy to help with whatever you all need.
The other thing, too, I want to underscore is when the slide that Tim talks about who is best to deliver the message. Because we may say, oh, the youth. That may be in some respects, it may not. I mean, and which youth? I mean, we've had some youth that are amazingly articulate and can really deliver the message well. And you have others that just may not be as well prepared to do that. That doesn't mean you don't work with them to build their capacity, but really think about who is the best person to deliver the message.
Well, and let's just say you wanted to do a campaign, and I'm making this up, that you had a campaign of you want youth to have internships. And so really, just recruit as many kids as you can, hook them up to a microphone, put them in front of your iPhone, shoot vertically, not horizontally, and have them say, hi, my name is, Frank Peasy, and I go to Cordova High, and I want an internship because I want to learn. If you're a business, will you help me? And just create a bunch of those and just send them out and see if you can see what kind of a bite you can get. I mean, there are a bunch of ways to do it.
So are there any questions?
Our COP was given a homework assignment, and apparently they're
already working on their homework.
Getting ahead.
They're all still logged in, right? Is that...
Yeah.
And I think, as you have questions that come up, as you're interested in these types of things, by all means, shoot an email to whoever your TA provider or me, and then we can route them through to, Tim's always open to kind of bounce ideas off of as well. So,
of course, yeah.
So, yeah, by all means, we're here to help you with that.
Our goal in helping you with this message is to help you reach those partners, the hard-to-reach ones, the ones you haven't figured out how to fully tap into, and maybe it's to help recruit more youth for your particular program or reach that kind of disconnected youth demographic. We want to support you in your goals, and messaging is certainly a big part of that, no matter what it is that you're accomplishing, whether it's trying to get more funding or trying to reach more youth or, build a better relationship with your school partner or your municipal partner. So thank you for bringing this opportunity to our community of practice.
Tim, thank you very
much.
Sure. Yeah, thank you. So now we are moving on to Han.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So we are just about out of time for our community of practice meeting. Before we end, we do want to go over a few reminders and next steps. Today we brought up a lot of great new resources and tools that Randy and I would love to add to the Government's Engaging Youth Toolkit. So we just want to give everyone another reminder to please send us any new developed resources you have so we can add it to the toolkit. Again, our goal is to include as many new resources as possible so others can implement similar programs and not reinvent the wheel. Also, we will send out the COP roster again, but we want to challenge everyone to really make the effort to connect with each other. This community in practice is really for you. If you have questions, please reach out to each other, discuss solutions, share resources, and talk about some of those challenges that you're facing.
Particularly those monthly financial and narrative reports you have to constantly do.
Yes. Next page. Just a few other reminders. Our next COP meeting, like Frank said, is a virtual meeting. Right now it's scheduled for August 23rd at 10 a.m. Again, we have homework, so in the next few months, please feel free to work with us, the TA provider, to help develop those messages and answer any questions you might have. Again, please get those invoices in to Randy and Christy. We really need them.
And most of all, be sure you're really spending some time thinking about all of the in-kind contributions that you and your partners are offering to these projects. We're looking to demonstrate to the Workforce Board the amount of leverage they're getting out of by supporting us, and any contributions you can add. If you're a school district and your city is helping you, add up all the staff time, including, don't forget that admin, the exec that you met with, all of the staff resources that went into making something happen. Those all qualify as in-kind assistance.
And then we have a quarterly report due in April, so we may be reaching out to folks individually to get some of those best practice and success stories documented for that report. And then lastly, the GUI team has started work on an evaluation piece for both the GUI program as well as the COP, so you'll hear more about that in the next COP meeting.
And thanks to 3 of our sites for really signing on to help contribute to a much more robust evaluation. I want to thank ProYouth, West Sacramento, and the Ventura County Civic Alliance for individually taking a deeper role in evaluating their models to help others as we continue to grow.
And lastly, this webinar recording will be available online. We'll send out the webinar link as well as notes. There will also be an evaluation survey that you'll get immediately after this meeting, so please do fill that out.
Well, I'd like to thank my colleagues here at GUI. I also really want to extend a big thank you and congratulations to Terry at SETA for the great work that you put into the guidebook. We really appreciate the dedication and time of all of our COP members. We know it's a lot to ask you to be at your desk for 2 hours and participate. So this is your community of practice. Let us know if you have feedback on how this group can be more of a resource to you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
See you later.